Hey everyone, today I'll be reading out of Matthew chapter 23 and 24, and I'm reading from the Life Application Bible. Chapter 23, Jesus warns against religious leaders. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "You would think that these Jewish leaders and Pharisees were Moses himself, the way they keep making up so many different laws. And of course you should obey every whim. It may be all right to do what they say, but above anything else, don't follow their example, for they don't do what they tell you to do. They load you with impossible demands that they themselves don't even intend to keep. Everything they do is done for show. They act holy by wearing on their arms little prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and by lengthening memorial fringes of their robes. And how they love to sit at the head of a table at the banquets, and in the reserved pews in the synagogues. How they enjoy the deference paid them in the streets, and to be called rabbi or master. Don't ever let anyone call you that, for only God is your rabbi, and all of you are on the same level as brothers. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven should be addressed like that. And don't be called Master, for only one is your Master, even the Messiah. The more lowly your service to others, the greater you are. To be the greatest, then be a servant. But those who think themselves great, oh, they shall be disappointed and be humbled. And those who humble themselves, they shall be exalted." Jesus condemned the religious leaders, verse 13 onwards. "Woe to you, Pharisees, and you other religious leaders, you hypocrites! For you don't let others enter the kingdom of heaven, and you won't go in yourselves. And you pretend to be holy with all of your long public prayers in the streets, while you are evicting widows from their homes. Hypocrites! Yes, woe upon woe to you, you hypocrites! For you go to all lengths to make one convert, and then turn him into twice the son of hell that you yourselves are. Blind guides, woe upon you! For your rule is that to swear by God's temple, that means nothing. You can break that oath, but to swear by God, but to swear by the gold in the temple, oh, that is binding. You blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? And you say that to take an oath by the altar, that can be broken. But to swear by the gift on the altar, oh, that is binding. Blind! For which is greater, the gift on the altar or the altar itself that sanctifies that gift? When you swear by the altar, you swear by it and everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heavens, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God himself. Yes, woe upon you, Pharisees, and to you other religious leaders, you hypocrites! For you tithe down to the last mint leaf in your garden, but ignore the important things: justice and mercy and faith. Yes, you should tithe, but you shouldn't leave the more important things undone. Blind guides, you strain out a gnat and then you swallow a camel. Woe to you, Pharisees, and you religious leaders, you hypocrites! You are so careful to polish the outside of the cup, but the inside is foul with extortion and greed. You blind Pharisees, first cleanse the inside of the cup, and then the whole cup will be clean. Woe to you, Pharisees, and you religious leaders! You are like beautiful mausoleums, full of dead man's bones and the foulness of corruption. You try to look like saintly men, but underneath those pious robes of yours are hearts besmothered with every sort of hypocrisy and sin. Yes, woe to you, Pharisees, and you religious leaders, you hypocrites! For you build monuments to the prophets and killed by your fathers, and lay flowers on their graves of the godly men that they destroyed, and say, we certainly would never have acted as our fathers did. In saying that, you are accusing yourselves of being sons of wicked men, and you are followers in their steps, filling up the full measure of their evil. Snakes, sons of vipers, how shall you escape the judgment of hell? I will send you prophets and wise men and inspired writers, and you will kill some by crucifixion and rip open the backs of others with whips in your synagogues, and hound them from city to city. So that you would become guilty of all the blood of murdered godly men, from righteous Abel to Zechariah the son of Berechiah, slain by you in the temple between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, all the accumulated judgments of the centuries shall break upon the heads of this very generation. Jesus grieves over Jerusalem, verse 37 onwards. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones all those that God sends to her. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers the chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me, and now your houses is left to you desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you are ready to welcome the one sent to you from God. Matthew 24. Jesus teaches on the Mount of Olives. Jesus tells about the future. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples came along and wanted to take him on a tour of the various temple buildings. But he told them, all these buildings will be knocked down with not one stone left on top of another. When will this happen? His disciples asked him later, as he sat on the slopes of Mount of Olives. What events will signal your return and the end of the world? Jesus told them, don't let anyone fool you, for many will come claiming to be the Messiah and will lead many astray. When you hear of wars beginning, this does not signal my return. These must come, but the end is not yet. The nations and the kingdoms of the earth will rise against each other, and there will be famines and earthquakes in many places. But all this will only be beginning of the horrors to come. Then you will be tortured and killed and hated all over the world because you are mine, and many of you shall fall back into sin and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and lead many astray. Sin will be rampant everywhere and will cool the love of many. But those enduring to the end, they shall be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, so that all nations will hear, and then, finally, the end will come. So when you see the horrible thing told about by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, note to the reader, you know what it meant. Then those in Judea must flee into the Judean hills. Those on their porches must not even go inside to pack before they flee. Those in the field should not return to their homes for their clothes. And woe to pregnant women on those with babies in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be a persecution such as the world has never before seen in all of its history and will never see again. In fact, unless those days are shortened, all mankind will perish, but they will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen people. Jesus tells about his return, verse 23 onwards. Then if anyone tells you, the Messiah has arrived at such a such place, or has appeared here or there, don't believe it, for false Christs shall arise, and false prophets, and will do wonderful miracles, so that if it were possible, even God's chosen ones would be deceived. See, I have warned you. So if someone tells you that the Messiah has returned and is out in the desert, then don't bother to go out and have a look, or that he is hiding in a certain place. Don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes across the sky from the east to the west, so shall my coming be, when I, the Messiah, return. And wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the persecution of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give light, and the stars will seem to have fallen from the sky, and the powers overshadowing the earth will be convulsed. And then at last the signal of my coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning all over the earth, and the nations of the world will see me arrive in the clouds of heaven with power and with great glory, and I shall send forth my angels with the sound of a mighty trumpet blast, and they shall gather my chosen ones from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now learn a lesson from a fig tree. When a branch is tender and the leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is almost here. Just so, when you see all these signs and all these things beginning to happen, you can know that my return is near, even at the door. Then at last This age will come to its close. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will remain forever. Jesus tells about remaining watchful, verse 36 onwards. But no one knows the date and the hour when the end will come, not even the angels. No, nor even God's Son. Only the Father knows. The world will be at ease, banquets and parties and weddings, just as it was in Noah's time before the sudden coming of the flood. People wouldn't believe what was going to happen until the flood actually arrived and took them all away. So shall my coming be. 2 men will be working together in the field, and one will be taken, the other will be left. 2 women will be going about their household tasks. One will be taken, and again the other will be left. So be prepared, for you don't know what day your Lord is coming. Just as a man can prevent trouble from the thieves by keeping watch for them, so you can avoid trouble by always being ready for my unannounced return. You are a wise and faithful servant of the Lord. Have I given you the task of managing my household to feed my children day by day? Blessings on you if I return and find you faithfully doing your work, as I've asked. I will put such faithful ones in charge of everything that I own. But if you are evil and say to yourselves, But if you are evil and say to yourselves, my Lord won't be coming for a while, and begin oppressing your fellow servants, partying and getting drunk, your Lord will arrive unannounced and unexpected, and severely whip you and send you off to judgment of the hypocrites. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.